Okay, this could be a really big deal. I haven't actually tested this out yet, but it's here, guys. Intel's XeSS technology is here, and I'm testing it out on my Radeon RX 6800 XT. This currently, to my knowledge, has only been implemented publicly in this Shadow of the Tomb Raider game, but hey, this is a good one to test out because running this game at 4K, I have the game at the highest settings, and we are over 60 FPS. However, if I try to kick on the ray traced shadows to their ultra setting, then my frame rate here is going to absolutely tank. Notice that we're down to 43 frames per second. This is where technology like XeSS could help out. This game does not feature FSR 1 or 2.0. However, it does have NVIDIA's DLSS, and XeSS is Intel's version of DLSS, but unlike like NVIDIA, they don't make it only run on their brand of GPUs, because quite frankly, they don't have enough market share for that to be worth game developers' times to implement. But let's kick this on to performance mode, and I'll show you what I mean, although I think I'm going to go ahead and turn off motion blur for the sake of recording things in motion accurately. So let's go ahead and kick XeSS to the performance mode and see what happens to our frame rate. We are now up to 69 nice FPS. So that's a huge performance boost. And the image, at least standing still, looks very, very similar. We will test this out in motion in just a second, but first let's get an idea of what sorts of performance gains we get at the various settings when we're standing still here. Now, I don't have time to edit this video right now. It's possible I'll do more of a like side-by-side comparison video in the future. But right now I'm honestly extremely busy, but I just noticed this came out and wanted to show you guys. All right, going down to the balance settings. So this is a higher internal resolution. Performance was upscaling from 1080p to 4K. Balanced is higher than 1080p. I think it's something like 1280p, somewhere around there. And notice that we're still at 62 FPS in this scene. Let's go ahead and further increase the resolution to quality, which again will give us less of a performance boost, but the game has more internal resolution to work with. We're now to 56 FPS. We have dropped below 60 FPS now in this scene, but we're still well above where we were without XeSS technology. And let's go ahead and click it up to the UltraQuality setting. Notice this has an UltraQuality setting, like FSR 1.0, in terms of the render resolution internally being extremely close to native. DLSS and even FSR 2.0 only go up to the quality setting, not the UltraQuality setting. And those names are roughly the same upscaling percentage. All right, with the UltraQuality setting, we're not getting much performance boost. We're only up to 48 FPS here from where we started. However, some people might choose this because actually certain elements of the image look better than the native resolution in games that don't have great temporal anti-aliasing. Look at the tree leaves in the distance, and I'm going to go ahead and kick XeSS off, and I think we're going to actually see less detailed tree leaves. I can absolutely see it in person on my large 4K screen. You might not be on a 4K screen, and we'll test some lower render resolutions here in a second. And YouTube compression might be doing a number on this, but I can tell you 100% the leaves are less detailed at the native resolution. This is also something you see with DLSS in this game, and I think the game uses a higher, like a better level of detail bias when you're enabling technology like XeSS and DLSS compared to native. So basically, using it at the quality setting performance-wise, UltraQuality setting performance-wise didn't gain us much performance, but it gained us a little bit, and it is actually gaining us more detail to the distant foliage. However, there's some more things we need to test. We need to test out disocclusion, which is as we move the camera, sorry, I didn't mean to go to the quality setting. Sorry, guys. This will be live with no edits. I just, honestly, my kids are baking cookies with my wife right now, and I need to go up and eat those cookies as soon as they're done. Anyway, so what I'm looking at here is at the native resolution. As objects are blocked by Lara, and we move the camera, maybe I'll do it pan kind of slowly, they become visible. And ideally, they would still be at their full detail even as they're just first into view as we move that. If we turn this on to the most aggressive setting, like like XeSS Performance mode, I have a feeling that things won't look quite as good in motion as they're become visible and weren't visible in the previous frame. That's because there's less frames of data available for the game to work with. This is something that FSR 2.0 struggles with. And you know what? This isn't perfect, but to my eye, this actually looks better than what I see with FSR 2.0 in motion. Moving it quicker, I think, doesn't look quite as good. Let's actually run around the scene a little bit. So this is a 1080p to 4K upscale using XeSS. By the way, to my knowledge, this doesn't use quite as good of an upscale as it would when running on an Intel GPU. I believe, from what I've seen in the presentations they've given on it, that when rendering it on third-party hardware, because they don't have the matrix accelerators that are exclusive to Intel GPUs, they have to run at a slightly lower precision, which makes you not get quite as big of a performance boost. And I'm also curious if it doesn't quite get us as good of image quality. But that's something that'll need more side-by-side testing, which I'm just really not equipped to do at the moment. I'm looking at this fence, this wooden fence in motion here, as it moves past the branches. And again, I don't know how much this will come through in a YouTube video, but it breaks up in motion. It's definitely breaking up in motion. And I'd like to compare that to the native resolution. So if I'm going to go to the XeSS off mode, so native resolution with TAA, and actually it breaks up. It seems to break up a little bit in motion with the TAA as well. So that wasn't entirely actually just due to the XeSS. And honestly, at the lower frame rate, things certainly feel worse right now. Just playing the game at the native resolution. The other thing I want to look at is those distant fencing objects in the distance, where at the native resolution, sometimes little thin lines like that have trouble upscaling. So I do want to go over and test that out. So we're going to kick on to the performance mode again to see the most flaws in the image when you're doing an aggressive upscale. And actually, again, you might not be on a 4K screen, but I can still see the individual lines in the fence in the distance. So that's not too bad. Hey, look up at the tree right now. Look at the tree leaves with the smoke coming out of it right above Laura's head. Do you see some shimmer going on there? And actually look at the textures on Laura's outfit right now with the performance mode. They're shimmering quite a bit. So both in the trees and up there in the like on her outfit. Sorry, the textures on her outfit. Let's go ahead and turn this off. And okay. Yeah, those are significantly more stable at the native resolution. So we're certainly seeing some issues with the upscale. However, look at this scene right now. I'm at 30 FPS with the ray tracing maxed out at 4K resolution here. And again, if we pop back to the XeSS at this scene with the performance mode, we are jumping all the way up to 60 FPS. So that is making a massive, massive difference here. I'm suspicious with that 30 and 60 FPS numbers. Is that just a coincidence in that scene? Yeah, I almost felt like VSync had kicked on or something, but no, it just happened to be the scene I was looking at was difficult here. So in this particular scene, we are seeing the performance double going down to performance mode, which is pretty impressive. But like I said, we are getting some image artifacts. Let's move up through the settings and see at what point those go away. I'm still seeing it at the balanced setting. Still seeing her outfit shimmer and the trees shimmer. Let's go up to the quality setting. Let me actually apply that. Okay, most of the textures in her outfit, okay, they look better now, but I'm still seeing that kind of weird shimmering. And the trees are still showing it a little bit. So this is definitely not perfect. And then going up to the UltraQuality setting, which is extremely close to the native resolution. Okay, I'm still seeing a little bit of it. So this isn't perfect even at the ultra quality setting. And again, going back to off, we now see there's tiny flickers around those leaves around the smoke. It's not much, and her textures on her clothing look perfect now. So to be clear, I certainly am seeing some problems with the image quality when using this, but you can see again the native performance here is in fact quite low when I'm trying to max out the ray tracing. So as usual with these upscaling technologies, some things look better. Like I said, the leaves in the distance look better than the native resolution, but there's image artifacts introduced through the upscaling. With DLSS, I tend to use it at the quality setting. With this, the quality setting is certainly getting me a big performance gain. As I run around, I'm not really noticing the issues on the clothing textures very much, so that's less of a concern. But yeah, I've got to say, overall, this is a really nitpicky thing. So if you just need the performance, you're on a GPU that just needs the performance, I think this is great. And if you are on a GPU that doesn't really need the performance, I mean, it's going to be a trade-off on if you want to go higher refresh rates, turn down graphic settings, or go ahead and use this. Now, I would like us to try it real quick without ray tracing to see if, because ray tracing is so demanding that sometimes upscaling techniques show more performance gain when you're using ray tracing than when you're not, as a percentage gain. So we're going to go turn ray tracing off, and we're going to turn XeSS off, and we're now going to test it out. Again, standing still again, so let's get a baseline of performance. So in this scene, we're at 49, bouncing between 49 to 50 FPS at the maximum native settings without ray tracing. And now let's go ahead and flip through those XeSS settings again. And here, the performance mode is bumping us up to 78 FPS. So we're at 78 FPS with DLSS, XeSS, I keep calling it DLSS. And again, off, we were at around 50 FPS. So hey, that is a pretty big gain. Again, that's the performance mode where the image artifacts were most apparent. Going up to the balanced setting is boosting us from 50 FPS to 70 FPS, which percentage-wise, that's a pretty big jump. And then going to the quality setting, we are at 63 FPS instead of 50 FPS. So once again, pretty big jump there. And going up to the ultra quality setting, we are at 54 FPS instead of 4950 FPS. So small gains, but again, at the ultra quality setting, you do get those increased details in the trees, but once again, I can see a little bit of shimmering in the textures on her clothing. So the next thing that I wanted to test out is for those of you who aren't on a 4K screen, what if we went to 1440p and ran through these tests again? So we're now at 1440p resolution. The graphics settings, I'm going to go ahead and do it with the complete maximum, including ray tracing. So let's get a baseline performance here. So in this particular scene at 1440p with ray tracing maxed out, it's looking like we are at about 87 FPS. You know what? For the sake of this being a, wanting to see what kind of performance gains I can get, I'm going to go to a more difficult area. I think this scene was a little bit harder to render. So here we can see that we're actually below 60 FPS. Let's call it 59, I mean, almost 60. With 1440p native resolution with maxed out ray tracing and settings. Let's go ahead and kick on XeSS to the performance mode. Okay, I'm instantly seeing the shimmering in the trees. I'm turning Lara so we can see her, her clothing. I think there's a little bit of shimmer to it, but we're boosting all the way up to 97, 98 FPS. That is a massive performance gain, and those of you on a native 1440p monitor right now can now kind of see the image qualities change. We're going up to the balanced setting. So the balanced setting at 1440p. Again, quite a nice performance gain. And then we will go up to the quality setting. So quality setting at 1440p. Again, the image quality is looking fairly good, other than that shimmering I'm seeing up there in the behind the trees in that fog. Okay, did I just go to the wrong setting? I went to the wrong setting, I think, because that. Oh no, that's at the ultra quality setting. Okay, for some reason at the ultra quality setting, I feel like the textures in her dress actually look worse. It looks to have more shimmering to me, although the trees with the fog look better. So that's really interesting to me. Now we're around 70 frames per second, and that's at the ultra quality setting. And if we turn it off again for comparison, we're down to 59 FPS. So really at the ultra quality setting, in this particular scene at least, we are seeing a massive performance gain. That is really interesting to me. And I'd like to actually run around at the, let's go to the quality setting. This is getting us a pretty nice performance gain. And let's see it in motion. So again, as objects are like disoccluded, things like that, let's run around and see what we see. Let's go to sprinting speed. Look at things like her arms swinging around, things like that. Honestly, to my eye, this looks pretty good. And again, this is allowing me to max out the ray tracing. This is the translucent ray tracing, so the ray trace shadows happening through the water here. So this scene can be incredibly demanding without any kind of upscaling. So to be clear, in this area, if I turn off the upscaling, I don't think we're going to be over 60 FPS. So this is making a massive difference for this GPU. Yeah, we're down at 46 FPS when we're looking at the native resolution here. Kind of spin around, look around. Again, maxing out ray tracing is certainly not required in this game. It doesn't really do that much, but we're just showing off the performance gain that we can get. And yeah, going up to the quality setting, we're up to 70 frames per second. This makes such a massive difference. I'm just really excited to see it. I know I'm very curious to get this in a game that has FSR 2.0, so that we could do a direct comparison between the two technologies. And then I'd also like to compare it with DLSS. Digital Foundry has already done a really good video comparing DLSS with XeSS in this game. However, I'm curious about how it runs on non-Intel GPUs. That's what I'm most curious about here. We could run through a few 1080p tests while we're at it. Why don't we go ahead and hit one of these more difficult areas for a 1080p test. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this area. And we're going to go ahead and switch it down to 1920 by 1080. Although we'll start out with XeSS off, and we're going to leave everything maxed out here. So 1080p, sorry, I accidentally moved. 1080p, let's get an eye on the textures on her dress and everything. We're at 78 FPS in this particular scene. And now, honestly, most upscaling technologies don't look very good when used, especially aggressively. Even DLSS doesn't look that great at 1080p. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing some more fuzzing to the image. Frame rate is a massive gain. This is the performance mode, so it certainly gives us a huge performance gain. Let's go to the balance setting. Okay. Again, compared to the native resolution, when you just don't have a lot to work with, like we're seeing here, you know, it is what it is. But I could certainly see lower end GPUs maybe using this at 1080p to get a bit of a boost. And would you guys be interested in me testing this out on something like an old NVIDIA GPU, something like a GTX 1060 maybe? I think that would be extremely interesting. I'm watching one of the character models walk in the distance there, and I felt like I saw some ghosting to it. So that's another thing to keep an eye on. And back to the native 1080p image for comparison. All right, I would certainly like to test this out on some other GPUs. I may have time to do some type of, what would you call it? Like a head-to-head, like side-by-side comparison. But honestly, guys, I'm extremely busy teaching right now. I don't know. Let's run around with DLSS quality while I'm talking. But anyway, you could let me know what other tests you'd like me to do here if I have time. No guarantees that I will have the time to do it. But I'm overall really excited to see this available for AMD GPUs. Like I said, a GTX 1060 seems like an interesting test for me, since that can't run DLSS. So curious how this would work here. And like I said, I'd like more details on whether this is as good of an image quality as XeSS running on a Intel GPU, or if they're actually running at a lower precision. Look at how fuzzy the fence looks there, shimmery. Anyway, let's see if the fence looks better when I turn DLSS off, because it might just be 1080p, but no, it looks significantly more stable. Yeah. Anyway, I think I'll end the video here. Sorry I didn't have time to edit in some side-by-sides, but hopefully this was interesting and we can look at it more in the future. Have an excellent day.